Hello, hello, hello to everyone out there listening. Welcome to Melanin and Moonlight. I am one of your hosts, Tyrell Collins.
Yeah, I'm the other Vernon Scott. Hello, everybody. Hello, friend.
Hey,
How are y'all?
friend.
How are you doing today?
I am doing good. This pollen is really kicking my ass here in Atlanta, but it's one of them things. Not letting it upset my mood though. You
Uh,
know.
you know, I used to really not necessarily drag people who had pollen allergies. I used to just like, well, I would empathize since I don't have allergies like that. Because it'd be looking bad. It'd be looking so fucking so bad. And I'm just like, are y'all okay? Oh my God. But I built up a defense as a young child because my brother, sibling rivalries and whatnot, he has pollen allergies. I don't. And I'm just like, it's that time of the year. But I got a small taste of that mess last year. I don't know why it's not impacting me this year. I'm fortunate and grateful
Mm,
that it's not, because God, thank you for doing this to me and allowing me to breathe freely. But like that experience alone, I
mm.
was like, oh God, no,
No.
it's
Yeah, no,
crazy.
and yeah, and I don't necessarily have it as bad as I have seen like other people have it. But what also has been a blessing is that ever since COVID, and the nature of masking up and stuff, like I don't necessarily wear my mask all the time in public, but
Mhm.
like if I know I'm going on the train or like some other places where usually I will at least like keep a mask on for the past few years, my allergies have not acted up as bad. It's still like a little bit bad, but not as bad as it usually would happen like years ago. So I'm like, yes to masking up. Y'all stick with y'all mask out there.
Please, please. Fortunately, I don't have to go to many places, but I be thinking about it. Like, if I have to go out here in the big public like that,
Mm-hmm.
I just be like, "Oh, don't come near me." It's like
Look for
pre-COVID, I
that.
already had my little hypochondriac ways. Like, okay, I do have OCD, but even like me waving my hand over a trash can, especially if I'm cooking, if
Mhm.
my hand, there's nothing in the trash can, mind you. My hand goes over that little box with the lid open. I'm washing my hands because I don't know, it's nothing in there, but I don't trust that air. Like,
Exactly.
and then COVID happened and it just exacerbated that.
Yeah. I'm like, mm-mm, mm-mm.
I barely want to be around other people. Like, this is how I know how much I love my friends. If I go into your spaces, I'm willing to see you in person. It's love because otherwise, you there's germs over there. But then again, with all the holy shit that I've done over the years, I probably should not be as big of a germaphobe. But we could talk about that caught in the distance some other
Exactly.
day. Oh God. All right. So the things of discussion today. So to start off, I want to go into addressing the something that we talked about a couple weeks ago with
Mhm.
the Breakfast Club. So we had Lauren and Jess Hilarious. They were having some well, Jess Hilarious had some issues with the way that the show was going. There was some anxiety that she was feeling, and real life concerns.
Right.
And she brought those up. And of course, they had a talk on air to try to figure those things out. If you haven't listened to the episode, go a couple back. I should bring up the name of the episode, but go a couple episodes back, listen to it so you can be up to date on that incident and then, gain that context. So
Mhm.
after that, I'm just scrolling on the TikTokies as I do on a regular basis, and I come across this video of Lauren and Jess Hilarious. They got this whole ass music video about this beef that they had, and I was like, "This is beautiful, right?" If you go out and find it, vocally, it was not hitting where I thought it could have been. which was very unfortunate for them. But it was fun. It was liberating to see that type of video, them coming together just to put it on to address the issue, but not make the issue the final moment, right? So it
Mhm.
was beautiful to see that they were able to. I guess they squashed it, or they come to an agreement of what things are going to look like going forward, and there's a mutual agreement and mutual understanding that we're not here to separate, but we're here to collaborate. So just seeing that, I'm like, yes. Now, if things are not hunky-dory behind the scene, I don't care about that per se. I don't care about the Breakfast Club, just to be honest. But I'm the public image that you put out. I love it for them.
Mhm. Yeah.
I really think that it's great that they were able to show for a mass variety of people who may be on the low emotional maturity level to those who are a lot more emotionally mature, to show that we can have conflict, we can talk about those conflict, and we can surpass that conflict and make fun of it and show that we can be a unit in this, right?
Yeah.
So that was good to see. What are some of your takes?
Yeah, no, I loved it. I love seeing, these two very talented, black women, able to reconcile in this space, even though it was Jess was the one that was, like in her feelings about it. I think it speaks to a larger issue, especially when we think about the history of the disregard of black women in
Mm.
general. So I think that even though, of course, like Jess's feelings were kind of like unfounded, given the nature of um just Lauren's stance and how she came into obviously the nature of the job and stuff like that in the first place. But it's always to say like just his feelings like are always valid. You can't take away from people's experience. And I really like the fact that they made a laugh about it and did like the job is mine parody. I really love that. So, if anyone doesn't know, like the ladies, they ended up publishing a parody of the singers Brandy and Monica's "The Boy Is Mine," and so they just did the opposite of just reframing the lyrics of having these sparring lyrics as to say like, oh, of course the job is mine, so. I really did enjoy that. That not only were they, able to come to like a reconciliation, but they leaned into what kind of like what they do best, kind of like what they do. They turned it into a laugh, that was meant for the both of them. So I really did enjoy that fact. And I think that again, this type of issue, it just really sheds light on the complexities of workplace dynamics, especially when you are in high profile media settings. And so Jess's openness about her feelings, I think, of course, resonated with many. It sparked controversy about, just the nature of communication, what support looks like, and things like that. But yeah, I'm glad to see that this is one of those instances that had a public, falling out a bit, but also had like an internal, resolution as well, and that we actually got to see that. So I'm hoping for the best in moving forward.
And I I think this is another benefit here is that it teaches people who may be in the public eye
Mhm.
that sometimes when we do have these discussions, we have these um, moments where there's backlash or, community comments on a person's lived experience, that it's okay that we can revisit that, talk about it in a healthier way, and, bring it to the forefront, right? Like even when it comes to the situation with like what we talked about last week with Monique and
Mhm.
Tyler Perry, if they have that conversation and lash out and, come to an agreement on what their version of mutual respect will look like, and they come out with a parody video where um whatever Tyler Perry's dressed as a freaking Medea and Monique's Cora, who knows? And they just, have a good time. That will be great. Or if Monique's doing the comedy special, she brings out Medea as a guest and they just, bag on each other and just make it fun. Like, show that we can still work together even after the conflict has been resolved. Or
Mhm.
if it's one of those situations, not, because I'm a firm believer in, setting those clear boundaries and there being true consequence there. If that just means coming to an understanding that we cannot have a professional,
Yeah.
relationship, and that's fine. Have that conversation. Be like, we have come to terms that this is just how we're going to operate. Have nothing but love for this person. Nothing. They have nothing but love for me, and I'm just happy that we were able to have resolved that conflict. But with having that conflict resolution does not mean that we have to continue these relationships. Doesn't mean that we have to, be buddy buddy, right?
Right.
So,
Really with this situation, as we talked about it the first time, and as we're talking about it now, I really did, think that this was also a case where, like obviously when you're not really the target, you're just like
hmm
the person that somebody has to supplement feelings onto. That's what I
hmm
kind of really felt like with this Jess Hilarious and Lauren situation, because what Jess, in my opinion, what Jess was really, kind of like in her feelings about, was being undermined in the perception of a lack of support from, like co-hosts like DJ Envy and Charlemagne and stuff like that. And then because Lauren is there, it's this she's like this embodiment of somebody like who's like taking her
hmm
place, like you and like how you had brought up, like Lauren has never done anything to her, like like, so it's like, why are we doing this? But it's like one of those things, as we talked about in one of our other previous episodes, where it's like when you have to reconcile and recognize that sometimes your feelings are not facts,
hmm
and you can't always operate in that space. Just because you feel something, that doesn't necessarily make it true. you know so you can feel however you want to feel, but we also need to, okay, let's harness these feelings I'm having and let's get down to the real bottom of it. Where is it
hmm
coming from? And in this situation, it really wasn't about Lauren.
hmm
It was about the fact, no, you feel maybe undermined and under supported, so like, let's see how best we can address that.
That part.
you know so yeah, but and although I am definitely glad that it seems like, a truce or reconciliation, or however you want to put it, has been, made. And like I say, I really do like the fact that they made, like a parody and, everything like that. And so, and although I really think it really sets the tone and really demonstrating, one, their commitment to resolving difference, but it's also, like you say, it's also shining a light about how other people may take steps in reshaping narratives, especially surrounding professional relationships.
hmm
And I think that sometimes when you are in, again, high profile media situations, such as like, talk radio and things like that, when you're in certain job environments, I think that sometimes we become a little bit too comfortable, and you become a little bit too familiar, you know,
hmm
and not recognizing that, yeah, there are some intricacies about how to handle the workplace that, you can't, that, you, where you shouldn't, just go off of, again, what it is that you're feeling, because what you're feeling may not be fact,
hmm
so yeah. So again, let's just hope that this is a great, a new dawn, new era for them, just moving forward. And let
Yeah.
both of these ladies shine like they're meant to be.
Yeah. And hopefully I don't have to have any other additional conversations about Just Hilarious or the Breakfast Club because personally do not give one flying F about either one of those parties. But shout out to Lauren. I have no issues with her. She's doing
Look,
that
but P.S.
thing.
Look, P.S. Laura, I love you, girl.
Right. So we know for the record. Oh, Lordy. And speaking of facts over feelings, I
Mm,
feel as though it's a great it's about that time to talk about not necessarily the foolishness that is the Republican Party, but the foolishness of our political system. But
Mhm.
specifically bring up this, and it's not even foolishness for this person, um, but this situation with Cory Booker.
Yeah.
Which, just to start off, congratulations to you, great black man, with just accomplishing this feat of being on your feet for 25 hours and what, 20 minutes to filibuster?
Yeah.
And like, it was like for those who don't know what happened, so there's this racist man from our history by the name of Strom Thurmond, I believe that's his last name, who
Mhm.
filibustered for like 24 hours in like 1963, if I remember correct. Whatever year the Civil Rights Amendment, sorry, the Civil Rights Act was being voted on and everything. He found that to be his opportune time to keep civil rights from being a part of the rule of the land, because,
Mhm.
you know, racism. So he was the record holder for all of these years. I think this is 40 or so years. Y'all do the
Mhm.
math, do the research, probably 60. Uh, do the extra research to confirm this information I'm providing. Don't trust everything you hear, people. Always do your own independent research. But yeah, he's been the holder of this mantle for the record holder for all this time. And Cory Booker, being a black man, breaking that record in itself, and even the issues in which he was bringing up, which I'll get to in a second, is a historical thing. So I
Mhm.
did want to take a moment. I wanted to take a moment to just congratulate him for that,
Mhm.
before we even get to talk about the additional portion of what made that action meaningful. So
Mhm.
congrats, black man. Love that you did this. So Cory Booker, we stand proud and happy for what
Yeah.
you've accomplished.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think he articulated concerns over various issues. So, well, which, like Vernon just said, we're going to get into a little bit. But of course, we know everything that's been going on with our political system, such as cuts to Social Security and Medicare. Trying to dismantle the Department of Education, aggressive, immigration enforcement practices. And, it's just like our boy Cory Booker, he spoke on it all.
Mhm.
And this is, and whenever, and just to clarify, whenever Vernon and I talk about, anything regarding politics, we're not in a space to completely uphold, any one individual. So this is not oh, let's sign on to Cory Booker, or like let's love him or like him, or even no, we're always here to just talk about what actually happened and what is fact, and what is facts, not about our personal feelings about one person or another.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely should definitely kudos to him to break that record of that 25 hours and 5 minutes speed on the Senate floor. It, definitely cementing history. And also, I mean, I think just the nature of, leveraging, of how we're in a time where we can leverage like very modern communication channels, right? So leveraging about the fact of like our social media platforms, TikTok, live, like going live streaming, things like that, right? So I think I read one article where it was like the live stream received like over 350 million likes,
Mhm.
you know, and was like being followed over 700,000 like new followers to his account and stuff like that. So in a way, it kind of, what he did really is kind of like that old school method. Like, no, I'm about to get down into the trenches and show you what, and show you what this is. But I'm also going to appeal to the kind of social media age and the younger space that we live in as well, to appeal to that younger demographic,
Yeah.
to show the impact of that message. So
And even with it being live streamed and people being able to comment and participate in this historical moment, it like him just being there really touched so many people who've just been asking the question, where are the adults in the room, right? Where are the people
Mhm.
who can put a rein on all of this foolishness that's going on within our political climate, or at least highlight or speak on or name it for what it is? Because, like, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about, or last month, we were talking about the situation with Al Green, and we're just like,
Mhm.
where's his backup? Where's the people who are supposed to be supporting him?
Mhm.
Which I'm still standing strong and firm on that. But I'm happy to also see that there's more people willing to put themselves out there. Like one of the things that what we talked about as well in a sense, but also
Mhm.
Cory Booker highlighted is the John Lewis's commitment of doing or being in good trouble,
Yeah.
right? And he brought that back up. When are we going to be willing to be put ourselves in a situation to be in good trouble? And he was speaking to his party in that, and then also speaking in to the citizens of the U.S. Like, are you all willing to? Well, he mentioned how I mean protests are coming going on, how the constituents of all of these states are getting in this good trouble, and it's up to them as a party to reflect that in how they behave and how they vote and how they highlight these issues. And
Mhm.
I say another important thing because I was watching his live stream through another stream and I saw how he had like a good solid, I think it was 1 million people at the time. And this was the day of him breaking the record, a couple of hours before, like I was still on the stream when he broke the record.
Mhm.
Um, but like just looking at some of the comments that was going on through via his live stream, how people was like, "Thank you so much for speaking this. Thank you so much for raising awareness on this issue." This man brought actual concerns, actual letters from people who wrote his staff or other people's staff about what they're experiencing because of this
Yeah.
ill-willed, unqualified hire that we have. Well, not even hire, voted person in this in the White House,
Mhm.
talking about their real life experiences, how their lack of U.S. aid care is impacting them, how their random firing has impacted them, how
Right.
their disease is not being treated the way that it needs to be treated is impacting them, how the removal of certain services and funds are impacting them, how their health is declining because of
Yeah.
all of this that they're having to deal with as a result of this unqualified hire that
Mhm.
has been unqualified number of votes that has this person has received. So it was great to have somebody of power truly utilize the voice of the people to just point out the foolishness.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really one of those things that really cements that, you know, when, defending, especially like defending his speech, right?
Hmm.
And upholding our civil liberties. And what made it so great was how, of course, it contrasted, the highlighted a progression in, I think, the Senate's historical narrative, I think, from obviously recent and other historical efforts to hinder civil rights, right?
Hmm.
So, I just think that when things like this happen, it's always interesting how it can always still have like a polar effect when it comes to like reactions to it. Because, of course, the people that praised him, of course, for his dedication and, viewed this marathon of sorts as like this revitalizing moment for, like democratic resistance. And then on the other side, you have other people who questioned, rather the practical, I guess, nature of it, of such an extended speech. And, does it actually really affect tangible legislative change? And to me, I always like when I look at critics, my thing is always like if you're going to bring a counter argument up, I always say like at least have it to be valid. Because to me, that counter argument, for me, at least in my perspective, wasn't the goal. I don't think that he is, yeah, I don't think the goal of what he just did was to provide some sort of tangible legislative change, but it's to document what this change has done.
Hmm.
And of course, yes, it does lead to tangible change. Yes, all the more power to him, and for his message. But it's kind of like you're bringing up an argument to me. You're bringing up a counter argument to me that is not very sound. Now, if you wanted to dissect and pinpoint, actually did wanted to like counteract certain facts of his speech, you know, hey, okay, yeah, you can feel free to do that if you want to fact check, and
Hmm.
about things that he said. By all means, go ahead and do that. But the fact is that the one of the only chief complaints that you find with the nature of the speech is because you think that a speech that goes on that long is not going to have some sort of tangible change. Like, really,
Right.
really, all that we can come up with.
Yeah, I've been seeing people talk about that aspect as well, like saying, "Oh, he didn't do this when there was a specific bill and all of that." And like you said, these comments, everything that he read, is now on official documentation, and it's
Mhm.
representing actual people. Because if you think about what's going on, like what's usually recorded in these sessions,
Mhm.
it's a lot of lies, right? It's a lot of, especially with the makeup of how the government is now, especially when they're just striking any and everything from the record,
Mhm.
just for the heck of it, or because it's skewing towards the opposite of the message that they are trying to build. When people look back on this moment, they will see everything that has not been stricken from the record.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to strike this 25 hours of information provided by real life people who experiencing this from that record. You just cannot do that. Like you can argue certain aspects, this, that, and the third, but you're not going to do that, right? You're not going to have the time. It was all
Exactly.
done according to the Senate bylaws, their rules of order. So you
Mhm.
cannot necessarily strike anything from the record that is out of order. It was in order.
Mhm.
So you have that solidified. So when people do go back and try to understand what was going on here, they can now have individualized understanding of what people are experiencing that goes counter the narrative that has been pushed out for why this specific law was passed, or why this law is named some a specific way, but it's not necessarily following like the American Free Act or whatever the case is that's restricting people's rights.
Exactly.
Not saying that is something that is on the books. It might be, knowing the way that this this country is being run right now, but
Mhm.
it's at least a testament of how things are being ran. But yeah, having these voices being heard on this platform um, goes beyond just Cory Booker's actions. Like it goes beyond him um, reaching that 25-hour mark. It goes beyond him breaking that record. He is setting
Mhm.
in stone people's voices of what their real life pain happened to be. He's given their value for histories to come. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely agree.
so
So yeah.
any. Mhm.
No, I was just gonna say. So yeah. This moment really stands as a significant moment in Senate history, and it's something that I'm hoping that maybe this will be a wake up call.
Mhm.
To like the Democratic liberal parties. Like one of the main things that I've always had like a chief complaint about is, and I think I've mentioned this before, is like I am I'm not necessarily, heavily involved in politics, but one of the things that I've always felt is that we're always just so reactionary. And it's like to me it's like one of those things I have in my head. Stop being reactionary. You
Mhm.
know, the occupant of the White House has been told you who he is, has been told you the things that he's going to do. He is not the type of person who, when he says something, he's not gonna follow through with it. So it's like,
Mhm.
I've never understood why y'all acting shocked. Why are y'all acting so in dismay? What you need to be doing is to be mobilizing and planning so that way come next year for midterms especially, we can take back the House in the Senate. So, it's just one of those things that I'm like, just stop with the reactions. It's like they're not gonna change. I mean, literally since he was, I guess, voted back into the address, it's like I had in my mind, it's like I can't allow myself to get all discombobulated and dismayed over every little thing that he does. I would be in a sanitarium right now.
Right,
you know so it's like, stop reacting and do something, and actually mobilize to do something.
right,
And even if that's not, necessarily, I think, always protesting or always actively going to bat, but even if you're operating, behind the scenes, making, waves and things like that, appreciate that always. Sometimes that is maybe a better approach, but it's just like, just stop being reactionary to everything and stop acting shocked. It's not a shock.
nothing new.
If it and like I say, one of my favorite lines from one of my shows that we talked about last week, I'm like, if you really think that this was going to be different, you haven't been paying attention. Like, so just stop
Yes. So, speaking of stopping,
it.
I want to end us with talking about the beauty of Black people resting. And even going on the not being reactionary, because as a collective, Black people have been out here in these streets for a very, very long time fighting for the rights of everybody. And we're now at a period where that 92%, that 78%, it's just like you may have had my number, but you can go ahead and lose it. So for those people who may not be in the Black community who already understood the assignment just from when I said rest, to give you a little bit of feedback of what's going on. Black people are tired, right? Black people are not going out here to protest everybody's things anymore. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? And I love that I've been seeing a lot more people of most all races actually speaking on the protection of Black people in this moment, saying it is not Black people's job to be out there on these streets anymore. It's not Black people's job to be protesting because Black people showed up when it really mattered for this country, and everybody else did not. Like as
Yeah.
a collective, it's not to say that there was not people of all other races who were not stepping up to the plate for in that moment. It's not to dismiss that, but it's when we think about overwhelming numbers, that's where this conversation comes from, and also the historical history of how the protests have been going, how the voting has been going, the activism, the programming, be it through services and outreach to the communities. Black people have been here, right? And it's taken where we are as a country for other people to finally get to where we've been for over
Yeah.
30 years, right?
Yeah.
So, as a result, Black people are choosing to rest,
Yeah.
to focus on our mental health, to focus on our joy, to focus on preparing ourselves for whatever these next 4 years or beyond is going to bring our way.
Mhm.
Because nothing that is happening is something that was outside of our scope of mind because we saw it coming.
Mhm.
So I'm just happy that one, we have people of other races understanding and supporting that. And I'm also happy that we as a community are doing it.
Yeah.
So what are some of your thoughts as relate to us resting now?
Yeah, no, I really think that this is such a great topic, I think, to segment to, because immediately when you had made mention of like the nature of Black people in resting, I immediately thought of our sister Tricia Hersey, who is the founder of the Nap Ministry, and where she definitely emphasizes the nature of rest as a really like form of political resistance. And so, for anybody that's not familiar with Tricia Hersey, um, she's a poet, a performance artist, an activist, and she has come out with. I don't know if she's coming out with a new book this year, but I do know for the past 3 years she's come out with at least one book. I believe in 2023 it was like the Nap Ministries like Rest Deck, and then she came out in 2024 with We Will Rest: The Art of Escape. And then recently, no, I want to say no, it was 2022. She came out with her manifesto, like Rest is Resistance. I think that's it. But essentially, like her body of work in general just talks about disrupting the oppressive demands of a society that we live in that has historically exploited Black labor, right? So really, I think in the nature of her work, which I've read two of her books, because I've always been interested in conversations surrounding rest and reclaiming space and the body and things like that. And one of the things that I really love about her is her message about by embracing rest, we really do reclaim autonomy over our bodies and our time. And that is also what allows us to heal from also generational trauma. Because as we know that there are things that we carry subconsciously that is not always brought obviously is not always brought up in conversation or even interaction, but like anytime where we're having like visceral feelings to something, right, and we don't necessarily know like where that's coming from, I mean, obviously, Vernon, you as a mental health professional and a psychologist, anxiety is one of those aspects that we didn't talk about as Black people, like years ago. Like anxiety is like, what? Like, you better strap your boots up and be going about your business. We ain't talk about no panic attacks and anxiety and things like that. Like, no, it's like all you needed was some Jesus and some get yourself some Jesus in church and you'll be fine. But recognizing that we can't just have that as an answer. And not only is that a mental health aspect, but it's also a generational aspect as well, that you can suffer from panic attacks. You can suffer from anxiety about things that have been passed on. And so really I think these talks about how we integrate just mindful practices, and that includes the nature of rest. What it does to our minds, our moods, our spirits, is just so great. And especially living in the times that we're living in. So
Yes. I feel all right, when you start talking about anxiety and then you brought Jesus up, the immediate thought that came up was this is actually going to be the episode title now, but and I usually wait until after we're done, try to create an episode title that really like culminates everything the best of my abilities. But this one, it has to be all you need is Jesus, holy oil, and a job. Because
oh,
that's
yeah,
that's
exactly.
essentially what it is to, survive as being black in this country.
Mhm.
All these years, because you're not really addressing your your real emotional needs, not really fully addressing your physical needs, but you are, for the most part, looking at those spiritual needs, or sometimes those spiritual needs not being met, depending on the type of church you're going to, right?
Hmm.
But to be black is to just have those three things.
Yeah.
You're just walking along with Jesus in a prayer and hoping that the job that you have is able to take care of the things that you need in your daily life, be it food, housing, all your basic needs, which unfortunately it does not. But
Hmm.
it's beautiful to see that we're in that space where even if we do have our Jesus holy oil in the job, we're still finding moments where we're getting a different job that provides that space for rest. We're moving ourselves into more spiritual places that actually fulfill us and make us feel whole. That's not telling
Hmm.
us that we're less than any other person. That's not demonizing us as a collective community, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we're really creating space for our own healings within our families, within ourselves, and that's a beautiful place to be. Like
Yeah.
this past year, well, not even this past years, these past few months of this 2025 mess, I've gotten to hear new stories from my family about what they're not necessarily what
Hmm.
they're challenging, but what they're doing different in their daily lives that they haven't been doing.
Yeah.
And some of them not have not really been that political. Like I'm
Mhm.
having people talk about how, oh, you need to start um, respecting your worth and everything. And I'm just like, oh, how did we end up here? Not necessarily about me, but you're telling this to your husband, you're telling this to your wife, your children about
Mhm.
knowing their worth and respecting it.
Yeah.
How did we get here? And a lot of that is from just recognizing, you know what, we really did so much of this still
Mhm.
was not being seen for the work that we were doing. And you know what? I'm going to be
Mhm.
hands off. I'm going to just focus on me now.
Exactly. And that's why I love so much about like jobs and especially schools who are implementing like meditation and like I say mindful practices into like the inbred of their like schooling or like their jobs. So like there was a study that came out some years ago about this public elementary school who um did like a I want to say like it was like a 5 or 6 week like mindfulness curriculum that they embedded like into like the school like to enhance like classroom behavior among students and especially like and especially not targeting but promoting students of color and definitely. I mean, the ways in which it helped contribute to a better, like, equitable learning space for them. They were learning, like, they were keeping students' attention more, teaching them self control, respect for themselves, and respect for others, which we consistently need to have that because one of the things, and I'm sorry for anybody that's part of the younger Gen Z generation or Gen Alpha, I'm just like, listen, y'all may have be innovative when it comes to technology and these ideas. I love the fact that y'all are outspoken and that you stand up for things that are not right and that should not be right. But a lot of y'all are also disrespectful as hell
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
have no decorum. I'm sorry. I'm just to put it out there.
No.
So one of the things that we need to continue to work on, and it's not to give older generations or Vernon, you and I, our generations are past with some of the things that we do. We know we out of the box when it comes to certain things too. But it's something that we all need to work on about learning to have attention, have self-control, respect for others. And I mean basic respect as do not walk up to me, just start talking without introducing yourself. Like, who are you? Like, I'm sorry, just like dealing with workspaces or dealing, with sometimes younger people or even older people, it just depends people in general. Like we have a lot of times where we are just out of line and out of order.
Hmm.
I'm gonna go into my real quick, like 5 seconds of my Iana Van Zant channeling spirit moment. Look, so out of line and out of order. you know, we need to get right. We need to get right. And the only ways in which we can do that is going back to, our topic, definitely when we have rest, when we have mindful practices. And that's not to say that you need to have that to engulf your life, but recognize the areas of your life that you need to work on. If you know that you are a person that is usually more hot tempered than usual, guess what? You may make jokes about that, but that is not a personality aspect that's going to serve you in the long haul in dealing with people. People are going to be people. People ain't going to change. As a society, I'm hoping we change, but people are, rarely ever going to change. So you need to learn how to deal with people in either, okay, this is something that I'm going to have to engage you on, or I'm going to have to disengage, you know, and whatever that looks like for you, recognize that, so that way, again, stop reacting to stuff, so just, I'm hoping that, by, like I say, by incorporating our rest, by, exploring more forms of liberatory practices, and I'm having my term liberatory, y'all, because I just got done presenting at a conference that had liberatory as a theme, so that's my new word for the week.
Dope.
So just having ourselves just transformed in liberatory practices can just really help us reclaim our body, our minds, our spirits. And listen, at the end of the day, we only got one life to live, so you better make the most of it and stop letting people steal your joy out here, because
Listen, your joy is expensive.
your joy is expensive, right? Don't let people take it. Don't let people.
Do
So
not.
get your rest, get your nap, and especially as studies have often going to show, and I want to point this directly to our black women. Black women, take y'all some naps. Take y'all some naps. You're more
Hmm.
than deserving. You're more than
Okay.
deserving.
And give yourself the permission to break down. Like
Yes.
just give it. And I want to speak on this because we're completely off topic, but it's still rest related. The reason why is because I enjoy creating a space for Black women to feel comfortable enough and safe enough to not feel like they have to carry all of the weight that they've been carrying throughout their lives, and
Mhm.
just literally break down and sob when they need to sob, be angry, be frustrated, be all the emotions, sad, angry, hurt, afraid, anxious,
Mhm.
joyous. Give yourself that permission to feel those things, because you deserve the weight of what those heavy emotions have been bringing onto your life. You deserve to
Mhm.
have that weight lifted off of your shoulders, right?
Yes.
And oftentimes we don't give ourselves that permission,
Mhm.
and we just continue to carry that. You don't need to let it go. Black men as well, go ahead and let go
Mhm.
of the anger that you're carrying, right?
Mhm.
Especially the anger that you may have for whatever black woman harmed you in your past. Let it go. Or whatever man harmed you in your past. Even if it's your father or your mother, let go of that hurt,
Mhm.
for real, so that you can open up that space to welcome in a lot more joy, to
Mhm.
welcome in a lot more good feelings in general, because you deserve that just as much as
Yeah.
any other person.
Yeah. And also, to speak to our black men for a minute, let's, normalize being soft with each other. Like, being soft does not mean like, oh, okay, we just have to huddle together in all big circles and stuff like that, have some type of kumbaya moment. I mean, yes, if we want to have that, let's have that. But it means just really being a safe space for your brothers to confide, in. Sometimes, it's hard to talk to our family
Mm.
and our coworkers or other people. Like when I am in especially my black male spaces, no matter if it's educators or if it's other queer groups or, whatever that is, I always feel seen and affirmed because I am with people that are like minded on the spectrum that I am. People who I can learn from and I know who can learn from me as well. But, and to all people out there, find spaces that affirm your being. Not just about what you do and what you bring, but hey, you may log on to a virtual call, or you may go to an actual physical space, and just to be in that space, can be healing for you. So let's normalize allowing others to have a soft space to land. That does not mean that you need to be the sole emotional support aspect for someone. That's where, therapy and a lot of other things come in, to play. But it is to say, if you're seeing a fellow brother struggle, take 5 minutes to listen to them. Let them share what's on their heart. You know, let's just connect as humans first. Let's connect as humans first, and we go from there.
Yes. Well, to close things out, I guess the question is, Tyrell, how
Mm.
has rest been impacting your life these last few months of 2025, or just 2025 in general, or even before then? What's been your developments of
Mm.
just expressing and enjoying the rest that has been provided to you?
Yeah, I think for me, just continuing practices that I've always had, both from both a physical and emotional place. I've always been advocate for good rest. I usually don't. For one thing, I always say it's good for you to acknowledge truths about yourself. I don't operate well if I don't have enough rest. So typically, like if any reason I don't have a good night's rest for whatever reason, or if I don't get enough sleep or whatever, I usually feel it throughout the day because all of a sudden, like during the day, I will get like very, very sleepy. So that's on a physical level. So I, incorporate practices such as, like I make sure to making sure that, obviously you're taking your vitamins, that, you're drinking your water. And it's not to say I am not a pillar of perfect health or by any means necessary, but when you are practicing certain good mental health, having good mental health practices, I'm stumbling on my words here, it allows your body to respond in that physical space as well. So the fact that I sleep bare, so that may be a TMI for some of our audience, but I do sleep bare. So you typically, when I sleep in the night, that usually lowers my body temperature. So I'm able to fall into a more restful sleep. And despite the fact that coming into this year, I've been juggling a lot. I had to finish defending. I had to finish the nature of my dissertation that I just defended a few weeks ago. I've been on the job market, so I've been traveling a lot for these like job interviews and things like that. But I've landed a job, so all of these things that have been happening I actually have not been stressed about. It's like a lot that's happening at one time, but I can't say that I've actually been stressed about it because I prioritize rest. I am somebody that I try not to let things keep me up at night. Everything that's going on in politics right now, yes, it is concerning. It is concerning to my heart. It's concerning to my fellow educators. Everything that is going on, it always is a burden on my heart. However, I also live in reality. Is there anything I can do about this situation right now? No. So guess what? I'm about to go my ass to sleep. And anything that is personally going on with me, I have to table it because by me tabling it, thinking about, maybe thinking on it more for the next day, if, God gives me blessing to wake up the next morning, the same problems that you had the day before, you'll have the next morning. And maybe by the next morning or the next day, whatever you want to say, you'll have it maybe not necessarily figured out, but at least maybe you'll be working towards a solution. So I just, my advice for people is just try not to let every things that are happening are always going to be troubling on your mind and may affect you, of course, physically, but try to not let it overrun your life. Do not let do, and especially coming for our people of color, we know stress is one of the ultimate killers of us. Do not let stress kill you. The same things that are going to be going on, they're going to be going on tomorrow and the next day and for the foreseeable future. Yes, of course, we hopefully that things will get better in time, but again, you can't let stress and things that's going on rob you of your rest and your joy. So I think for me, that's put it lonely. Of course, y'all know I'm long winded. Put it lonely. Just, I think for me, just making sure that I prioritize the things that I know I can and cannot control. If there's something I can do in the moment, yes, I'm going to do it. If there's something that I know I can't, hey, I leave it on the table. Let's revisit it tomorrow. I'm about to go to bed.
That
So that's how
heart.
I take care of myself, both mind and physical.
Yes, that's a word.
Yes.
Y'all take that.
What
Take
about for
that.
yourself?
I'd say with me, I'd say I've been so much more restful after. I say it started a lot more mid-February, where it's just like kind of like you focusing on what you do have control over and what you don't have control over.
Mm,
At one point I was extremely anxious about the clients that I was going to get. Will I get people who was willing to pay out of pocket? Would I be able
mm,
to get those people who needs it with their insurance and all of that? What is this going to look like? And then I was just like, you know what? People are going to come.
mhm,
People are going to find their way to me if they are unable to pay out of pocket. That is okay. Maybe I can extend an intern towards them to still get them what they need, and maybe
mhm.
that leads to a referral for me.
Right.
Or maybe if I just wait a couple months, still don't like make sure I'm doing things that's in my financial best interest, so I don't have to worry about as much stress that on that lens
Mhm,
it opens up doors for me to focus on other things. Like me resting, I've been able to get back into gaming. I've
mm,
been enjoying Kitty Island Adventures. Every single day I'm on that mofo just to make sure I connect with the animals, get my friendship points up, so I can get to this next level so I can officially beat the game. And once I beat the game, I'm not going to play it as much. That's just how I am as a gamer, especially when it comes to cozy games. I just want to
mm,
get to those end credits so I can see what we can do.
mm,
But of course, it's a game that wants to keep people active every single day, which I don't mind. I want to bring more visitors to my island. I want to secure them as friends and all that. It's a very loving game. But then I also found this new game, which is actually very Afrocentric. It's fun. I spent like 3, 4, 5 hours playing that game. Like I got it on like a Thursday or Friday. It was
mm,
during my spring break last week, and I was supposed to go help my little cousin out with something. I was like, I'll be over there around 6 o'clock. I'm so busy playing this game, I missed the time I was supposed to go see about
mhm,
him. And I was like, oh shoot, let me go on over here. I played it for an extra 2 hours, but that was bringing me joy, right? I've been able to feel comfortable and not always working, right? I've
yes.
found joy in the fact that I didn't have to work last week, other
Mhm,
than doing some therapy on Thursday. But outside of that, it was
yeah.
my weekend off, which also aligns with the week I just haven't been seeing clients on. So it was
Mhm,
like perfect.
yeah.
Spring break, everything.
And I'm so glad that you brought that up because rest also doesn't always mean like physically getting sleep. Like
hmm
of course, like you say, rest can mean joy. So like for anybody that's listening to us, like finding things that bring you joy and again, bringing you joy, not necessarily your friends or your significant other, but things that you enjoy doing or finding like new hobbies and activities getting into. We know that the work week can be, stressful. We know that you can be tired, but if you've made a commitment on Saturday that you're going to get up and go for a walk or go outside, try to stick to that commitment. We know it's hard. Obviously it's hard sometimes. We ain't saying we perfect. We sometimes we wake up and be like, I ain't doing that. But definitely commit yourself to getting hobbies, getting interests, for you. So that way your life is not just about work and coming home and just managing. Like let's do
Mhm.
more than survive. Let's thrive. And you never know these activities and these hobbies that you may get involved in or hey, if you're playing like you say if you're playing a game or like I say if you making yourself a, growing yourself a garden or whatever it is, for you that, you get
Hmm.
involved in to do. Let it be for you and let it bring some enrichment to your life. So that way you have something that you disassociate, with the normal day-to-day things that, you may have to do. And again, that's not always easy. It doesn't always seem like you always have the time for it, but at some point you have to make the time to prioritize yourself, because if you don't, again, your cup is gonna be empty, and there's not gonna be anything left for you.
Exactly. Like it I even found rest in doing errands, which I did not even think was going to even be a possibility. Because I was like, oh, this is going to be, it's probably going to take up a lot of time. Or I know I have this habit of putting time constraints on myself. Like, okay, I want to be back home because I do not like being outside, y'all. Just to be real, I want to be back home by this specific time, and like I was at the post office. That took close to an hour. And that entire hour, I'm just like, he has to do things. He has to go pick this thing up. And I know there's other people behind me. Luckily, there's this other person here. It's an inconvenience on their part on some level, but I wasn't even focused on that. I'm just like, this music is good. I need to find out which radio station they have this on because I'm vibing here. At least I'm getting this thing done today. I don't have to worry about this tomorrow. Like it was an enjoyable experience. And all I did was go to the post office, grab me some food, did a little bit, turned in some paperwork or whatever, and came right back home. And all of that exchange felt great.
Yeah, exactly. And you never know, like the things that you end up doing for yourself and you end up enjoying and things like that, it can also give you clarity into other aspects of your life,
Hmm.
regardless if that's professional or personal or what have you. Like just having that bubble of like your own time where you disassociate, or you're engaging in something that you love to do, it may give you clarity and give you answers to like, I've been really dealing with this like in, professionally or even personally. And it's like, okay, doing this, like if I'm gardening, being connected to the ground, being connected to the earth, things like that, it can give you just such great clarity where it's like, okay, I didn't actually think about this in this way, but this is actually giving me some needed answers that I need. So let me try this. So again, people just prioritize your needs, not to the detriment where you're just like, you're completely just ignoring everything else in your life or everyone else in your life, because we take that food for thought. Sometimes I think we also, as much as we promote self-care, I think sometimes people take self-care as a means of dismissal from everything else in your life. Like, do not have your parents or your siblings or people like that on red for 3 weeks and not knowing if you alive, or if you even alive. Like, don't do that. Let's
Mm.
not do that, people. Like, it takes 2 seconds to respond to a text message. If you're busy, just tell people, hey, busy doing me, call you back this afternoon or call you back at the end of the week or whatever it is. It takes 2 seconds to do that. I respect people's time, energy, and space, but also it does get annoying. It can get very annoying when you're trying to be a good person and you are reaching out, trying to check on your family, check on friends, and things like that. Because again, I'm one of those type of people. If I'm reaching out to you, that's not necessarily mean that I just want to have a full blown conversation with you. I just want to know that you're alive, that you're doing well. You know,
Right.
just,
Right.
just take 2 seconds to respond to people. I know people get on our nerves. They do. People need it. They need too much. They want too much of our energy. But again, we can prioritize self care without disregarding other. We can do it without disregarding others as well. So just be mindful of that.
Yes. And I end this on something that you brought up earlier about prioritization. That's something else that rest has brought to me yet again is understanding fully and prioritizing those relationships that are meant to be protected
Mhm.
and grown upon because I know I have a history of like setting up obligations of things that I need to do here, there, and all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, I've neglected some of my friendships, but and it doesn't hurt my friendships because my friends recognize like, okay, Vernon do be doing a lot of things, so they do provide that grace for me. But one of the things that I've just been recognizing for myself is how much of me prioritizing all these other things that I don't necessarily need to do with people who
Mm-hmm.
are not necessarily feeding into me as much as I would like for them to do, and how
Mm-hmm.
how much that's taken away from those people who are providing that grace for me.
Wow.
So when am I going to honor that grace and really make sure I show up for them as much?
Mm-hmm.
So rest is literally bettered my friendships and gave me the opportunity like this past weekend I spent with my best friend Aaron, who I surprisingly didn't see in like 2 years, and we talked about that. Like not necessarily either one of us were hurt by how much time it's been since we've seen each other physically, but
Mm-hmm.
just showing each other appreciation just for us occupying that same space and just catching up, him let me know how what's going on in his life, what's going on in my life, and it was just a beautiful moment. Like, so yeah, having this hindsight, I don't even want to even go back to having making those commitments to all these other things that not really going to be as fruitful for me. Like
Yeah.
when it comes to professional advancement, I will make a way to make it happen without having to go to that specific event
Mm-hmm.
if need be, or if I can make that event align with something that I can do with other friends, I will make that happen as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, like we get to meet in person this at the end of this month with which
Right.
I'm really looking forward to, as well as that same weekend I might be hanging out with some other friends in Atlanta, too. Well, some of my frat brothers that I haven't seen in a couple years, and it's like let's make all of this fruitful for
Mm-hmm.
everybody rather
Yeah.
than breaking my back trying to
Yeah.
travel here and there all the time. Because
Yeah.
if I would have left it up to other people devices or their devices, I would have been in the Atlanta area 2 weekends in a row, then having to go somewhere else after that,
Yeah.
and then having to go back to Atlanta. I was like, we're not doing that.
Yeah. No.
We're just not doing that. No,
Exactly.
not at all. Love you
Exactly.
all. I don't need to be there in that space for that commitment. This other one, these people don't really fuck with me like that.
Mm.
Love them from a distance, but I know what the reality is too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that to myself. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So,
gotta love it here. So, any last words that you have before I close this out for this episode?
no, just thank you so much to all of our listeners. Of course, as always, again, make sure you are prioritizing your self care. And let's just, of course, just stay conscious about what's going on in the world, but not let it overrule our lives. Still, please live your life to the best that you can. And you are always can be a positive light in someone else's world. So keep shining, y'all.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, y'all, thank y'all so much for tuning in to Melanin and Moonlight, your late night space for deep, thought-provoking conversations about sex, culture, and the well-being of the Black community. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the podcast to keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep the vibes flowing and your minds open. Bye, y'all.
Bye.